Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel. I'm back. Well, first of all, if any of you guys is in the northeast of the US, I hope you managed to dig yourself out of that snowstorm, because that crap was no joke. Let me tell you. I don't think in my whole life living in this country I have seen a storm as bad as that one, though. The good news is that, now that we're getting warmer weather and sun, hopefully it won't take a whole lot of time for all this stuff to melt away. And hopefully we won't get much more after that. Or not as bad as this one, which I don't think it's going to be the case. So yeah, I was out for, 4 or 5 days, whatever it was. But I'm back. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the so talked resets of civilization that have occurred within the history of mankind, basically, which is something that there's quite a few people talking about it these days, and there are different points of view and opinions and theories about it all. And I wanted to give my take and my input on that because I think it's important for us to understand that, first of all, a lot of the history that we have been told, and I've talked about this on many different videos in the past, is not what we are told. We've been lied to about a lot of things. A lot of information has been tampered with, has been changed, distorted, manipulated, because the people who control the historical narrative want to keep a certain type of narrative profile, so to speak, of what they want us to think about how things were and all of that. But if you are the type of person that likes to research things and find out, you try to get to the truth of certain things, you know that a lot of the stuff that we've been told about our history is a lie. You will know that there have been other civilizations prior to our current one that we have now, which is the modern man, right? You will know that there have been other, perhaps even races of human beings. The taller ones that had, six fingers and 6 toes. And there is plenty of proof of those records when you start to look at, archaeological findings and things like that. Statues all over the world, in the ancient world, of beings that, a lot of these statues have been vandalized on purpose to hide the sixth finger or the sixth toe, and in a lot of instances, even the way these people looked. You can't see their faces, their heads are chopped off. There's so much stuff. Like, if you start looking into that stuff, it's a whole nother rabbit hole, let me tell you. And but I've touched on this subject also before. I believe that because of how, nature works in its universal cycles, and how everything is cyclical in nature, there comes a time when, if people haven't achieved a certain level of, I don't know, spiritual development, let's say, for, to make it short and simple, that there is some sort of, like, nature demands that these things happen. And if they don't happen, then nature will do its own thing. And natural disasters, cataclysms, and things like that happen. And they basically wipe the slate clean and reset everything. And that's how it's been for thousands of years. Because, a lot of people who were record keepers and kept record of these historical events, they wrote about these things. It has been written. extensively. It's just that most people, like I said the other day on another video, most people today, they don't even read. So people are not aware of these things. People don't know these things. Most people are not in the know about some of these facts. It's just a fact of life. People are too busy living their own lives and trying to, pay their bills and all that, to pay attention to these little details of some of this stuff. And it's a shame because, I think it's extremely important, like I've said in the past many times, that we know some of our past and some of our real history and what really happened, because it's the only way that we are going to truly understand what we're all about in this realm. So, yeah. So there have been quite a few resets, at least 2 or 3 that we know of up until now, where major disasters and cataclysms have happened and a lot of people died throughout the world, but people always survive and then people always rebuild. And now we have reached this level of, what I call the pinnacle of technology, which is really not the pinnacle, but in our view, compared to what we've had in the past that we know of, we are achieving what I would call the pinnacle of technology with AI and all these things, right? But none of these things are really most of the time being used to make our lives better in the process, in the ways that it should be being used for. And instead, these things are all being used as tools for manipulation and control, and that's all that there is. So there's like this two side aspect of all these things. There's the positive side of it, that if we actually utilize these tools to improve the world, society, everything as a whole, right, it would be so much better than it is now. But because it's always about power, control, and money for the people who are running the show, these things never happen. And it's sad. I was just saying, I just saw this, I think it was last night, that it was I think it was Finland, but don't quote me on that. I think it was Finland that they did a bunch of research and utilized a bunch of technology together with laser beams and some frequencies and things like that. And they were able to, for the first time, recorded by history and science, supposedly, to make electricity become wireless. And this just happened in Europe. I think it was Finland, but I could be wrong. Just do some Googling. You'll figure it out. That's amazing. Wireless electricity. And that's nothing new. We all know that Nikola Tesla had achieved that in his day. And they shut him down. Because, the powers that be, so to speak, didn't want that kind of stuff available to everybody. Because if you have something like that, especially when it's like that, wireless energy, what do you mean, free energy? No, we can't have that. That's a no. Because if they can't put a meter on it and charge people for it, it's not going to happen. But this knowledge, this technology has been around for a long time now. And I think we've reached this point now that if we don't change our ways as a whole, everybody, right? If we don't begin to, work towards a common goal to actually make this world a better place for not only ourselves, but everybody else, chances are there's another reset that's going to happen at some point in the near future. It's a mathematical possibility that is basically inescapable and undeniable, because it's this is nature. This is like universal law. These cycles, they will never stop happening until perhaps certain things happen a certain way. And I don't even know if by certain things happening a certain way would stop these cycles from happening altogether. I don't have the knowledge to, you know, I don't have the answer to that really. But I think a lot of these cycles, regardless, they just happen because it's just the way the universe works, and you can't stop certain things from happening. Perhaps they may have a larger window of time in between after we achieve a certain, level of evolution when it comes down to the spiritual side of things. But I don't think there's a way that the cycles would completely end and stop. So I think that's just some good food for thought there. And, these things have happened. We all know that, just look into all the things, mud floods and all these things, all these magnificent buildings and structures that were left behind that are still standing today, and that currently we can't even build things like that the way some of these things were built using the materials that they were, built with. Go look at some of these buildings. I'm not making stuff up, A lot of these federal buildings that they use today for other purposes. And look at how these things were built with like all kinds of different marble things that were like, supposedly carved with laser perfect precision and all these things. And you're going to tell me that whoever built these things didn't have some sort of extreme knowledge or even technology that we don't know about to this day to be able to do these things the way they were done. I love this topic. It's fascinating. I usually watch a lot of videos and people talking about this. And just like I said in the past, be mindful of this whole Tartarian narrative, because there's a reason why they're pushing videos about these things all over the place with thousands, hundreds of thousands of views. Just be mindful and use your discernment and do your own research, and don't just eat it all and accept it all face value without having a nice grasping and understanding of what really happened in the past. But one thing is for sure, they hid a lot from us, and they still are. And there are no records of a lot of these buildings being built, even though by law there was supposed to be records. If you go look at the history of how things are done and how everything that's built, they're supposed to have records, blueprints, all kinds of stuff. There's nothing. Nobody knows how a lot of these places were put together, who put them together, if companies were used, which companies were used, where the materials came from, all of this stuff. It's crazy. I'm telling you, you start going down some of these crazy rabbit holes, and you get a lot of question marks and no answers. And that is all I'm going to say. So anyway, it's nice to be back. And, if you like the content, don't forget to click that like button, share, subscribe. It helps the channel grow and reach more people. And that's going to be it for this one. And I will catch you all on the next one. Until next time, take care, be safe. I hope we're done with the snow for now here in the Northeast. And I'll catch you on the next one. Later.